exactly. So let's get into cigars.
What are we smoking first?
It's whatever you want. So I try to select the cigars based on what you like or whatever similar theme is.
Yeah.
The Liga Lawyer?
The Liga Lawyer.
Yeah. So yeah, that's the Liga Privada, number 9, the Toro.
This is a interesting. Are we recording, by the way?
Yeah.
All right. So one of the things I always like talking to you about, Louis, is the cut.
Mm-hmm.
When I was a rookie cigar guy, I would always cut way too deep, right? And I'm finding in my old age that I'm trying to cut a little bit more shallow. Is that the right term?
Right. Yep.
Is that shallow cut? There you go.
That's nice.
So, I mean, it is just, it changes everything, right?
Yeah. And that's a lot of beginners make that mistake. Like, how far should I cut if you're going to use the double blade guillotine or some other guillotine? It's really not that much of a cut you want. Just enough to where you can see that filler exposed.
Right.
And that's it.
So for those watching or listening, I am lighting up a Liga Privada number 9 by Drew Estate. I'm a Drew Estate guy.
Yeah. Yeah, you're a fan of Drew Estate, especially the Ligas.
And so everybody knows, for those listening in Baton Rouge, Habana Port is the premier place to get a Liga. I mean, you can go to other places, but Habana Port's where you need to go.
Well, we're a Drew Diplomat authorized retailer. That's a category, a classification that Drew Estate advertises to distinguish which retailer is really all in with their portfolio. So we pretty much carry every line from Drew Estate. And as such, we're able to get some rare offerings like these Liga Privadas, which is Spanish for private blend. So Liga Privada, started by Steve Saka when he was president.
Right, I'm familiar with Mr. Saka, yes.
Yep, you're also another fan of his.
Well, another great thing about Habana Port was you guys actually had Steve Saka come to the shop and do a presentation on cigars.
Yeah, you remember that, huh?
Oh, dude.
Yeah.
I remember that. So, I mean, that's like meeting one of your childhood heroes, Steve Saka.
Yeah.
What I also like about this is I remember a time when number 9s, when Ligas were endangered species. You couldn't find them. And if you could find them, they were, I don't want to say gouged in price, but they weren't as easy. You guys just have them. I don't even ever think about it anymore, man. That's the ambassador facet, right?
Well, yeah, yes and no. A lot of people don't realize Louisiana is a weird cigar market because of our high excise tax, our high excise taxes on cigars.
The communist-like regime of anti-smoke.
Yeah. And the fact that there aren't a lot of tobacconists, you can find some rare stuff in your brick and mortar shops around this state. Now, if we were, say, in a Houston or New York or Chicago, we probably would never have these on the shelf. But that's a little pointer, like a little bit of advice for people who search for rare stuff. Look in smaller markets around the country. You'd be surprised at what you'd find.
And also, you can order online.
Yeah,
from Habana Port.
That's right.
I mean,
you can go to shop.habanaport.com.
For those who, seriously, shop.habanaport.com.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, I dabble in media. I love the fact that my favorite cigar shop in Baton Rouge is now next level media, podcasting, video podcasting, whatever you're going to call it. I call it a vlog in my instance. I feel compelled to ask, what was the impetus for this? Here you are just minding your business. And you had mentioned before when in the early...
It was about 5 years ago or 6 years ago, I had the idea for a podcast.
Pre-pandemic, we're sitting in Habana Port cigar location number 1.
Yeah.
And you had bought the stuff and you were like, I want to do a podcast. And now look at where we are now.
Right.
I mean, this is like a
Well, the barrier back then was in our old store, we didn't really have the space. If we were going to do a full-fledged studio, we would have probably had to have given up that lounge because it was a small lounge, as you remember. Right. And I just didn't want to do that. And number 2, I didn't really have the technical expertise. So when we got this new space, now we were motivated to, all right, let's actually create this, this initiative. And we were able to find Nick, our producer, who is just, has done wonders for us.
This is not a Mickey Mouse operation, my friends. So.
Yeah. And we're going to get Nick on at one point. We're talking about playing chess, for an episode. I don't want to give too much, but we're pretty happy with the setup. But for someone like you who's involved in media from radio, national TV, That's why I want to get your insight into what we're doing. Are we okay? Or, what kind of advice?
Let me say this. So normally, and I was talking to you guys before we went on air, normally I do national TV once a week remotely using Skype. And I'd like to think that while I am not like Nick, I have a little setup. I have in office studio at my law office, the Borghardt Law Firm, and it's not nearly as nice as this. Last week, we're recording on June 29th. Is it the 29th? It's the 29th. Last week I was in Atlanta at the studio in Atlanta for Court TV.
Yeah.
I was in studio all week.
Yeah, I want you to expand on that, like what your experience was like.
Oh, I'm about to. Yeah. So I've been doing Court TV guest legal commentary for about a year and a half. They flew me out there. They didn't call it a tryout. It felt like a tryout. It's like a training day kind of thing.
Yeah.
So first of all, what I was very impressed with was if you've ever been to a local news station like WAFB, WBRZ, NBC, it was essentially the same thing. Now, there are subtle differences. For example, in the studio, they don't have cameramen. They are robotic remote cameras.
Whoa.
Like whoever's controlling the cameras in the studio, and that may be a product of pandemic, there was no person operating it in the studio. It's all remotely done, all done in a control room. So the cameras will move around as directed. So you're sitting there talking like I'm talking to you, and one of the cameras moves to the left a little bit, moves to the right a little bit, and you're trying not to pay attention to the fact
that
you
can see it in your peripheral.
Huh? Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really super cool. The other thing is the mechanic. This is national TV, mind you. Mm-hmm. The mechanics of this are no different, essentially, than what we're doing. You're mic'd up, you're audioed up. So the only difference is, I have an earpiece in that is connected to the control room. So somebody in the control room is telling me, the Nick in the control room is telling me, hey, 2 minutes, or we're about to get you on in 30 seconds. Nobody else can, only I can hear that unless the anchor is sharing it too. So long story made short, there is a level of next level on it, but the basic rudimentary things are there. Now, is it super cool to be in Atlanta, the media hub of the United States? I mean, because it seems like, thank you, Ted Turner.
There.
Ted Turner, thank you very much. Atlanta is like a big media hub, right? So it was super cool, dude. And in fact, what was really ironic is it's in this industrial building, right? It's a commercial building, but it's not, when I say industrial, it's a commercial building. If you didn't know that Court TV was headquartered in this building, you wouldn't know. So you go into the building, you go past a security checkpoint, and you ring a bell on a suite, and there's a security guard behind the door. They let you in, and then once you're in Court TV studios. They send you to makeup. I had makeup on for a week, man. Dude. It was like, yeah, dude. There was 2 or 3 makeup artists that were basically like trying to make you look like, and you and I are bald headed guys, and so we don't want you to shine. We don't want it to shine. Yeah. So makeup, and then they audio you up, hearing and microphone, and then you just sit and wait. And then when it's your turn to go on, it is candidly, it was no different than doing Skype, other than I'm in the studio talking to anchors that I had been dealing with for about a year and a half without ever meeting in person. Michael Ayala, Judge Ashley, all these anchors though. And so we just basically doing what we're doing now, talking about national court cases. No different. I mean, I couldn't smoke a cigar. I mean, that would be cool if I could. And in fact, I've told you that Habana Port, I need to air a Skype session from the studio.
You're more than welcome.
That's next level. I mean, that's
you're more than welcome. Yeah.
But yeah, it was super cool. Atlanta is a cigar friendly town, as you probably know. Smoke shops were not bad. They're not Habana Port. They're not the VIP. I didn't go to one of the VIP lounges. It was all located in Buckhead, so it's a nicer area of Atlanta. Food there is amazing.
I was going to ask you, how was the food,
dude? Culturally, oh man. So I've always said that Houston's one of my favorite towns, right? Good food. You got some great lounges out there. You got the Davidoff Lounge. You got some other ones. Mm-hmm. This felt like one of the best food. And I say that boldly because I know that we're an hour away from New Orleans. Yeah. The food was amazing. The food and the cigar-friendly environment. Now, people weren't walking. It wasn't like Spain where you could just walk down the street smoking a cigar and nobody said anything to you. But in these cigar places, again, we're in communist Baton Rouge. There is no, I mean, unless you're, as you know, I'm sure you've talked about it in the past, unless you're grandfathered in, you're not smoking inside in Baton Rouge. You're not smoking inside in Louisiana, right? I'll let you touch on those draconian laws and rules and regulations. But there it was like I went to a cigar lounge that was attached to a restaurant. Like there was a definitive boundary between the lounge and the restaurant, but nobody said anything. I lit up and I'm just sitting there smoking in the lounge, and it's like, yeah, you're good. You're good to smoke here.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
nice.
I assume that if I wanted to get a steak and a meal and eat it there, I could. But like, I can't even remember the last time I've been able to do that in Louisiana. That was pre-pandemic. I could do that, maybe.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was not roughing it in the last week. Life was good. Life was good. Yeah.
So do you have plans to go back to Atlanta? Or?
So let me share how weird it is to do national media. Generally, you get very little to no feedback, like unless you're doing something terribly wrong.
Yeah.
If you say something terribly wrong, if you do something terribly wrong, then somebody pulls you to the side and says, "Hey, be mindful." I did not have that experience, but I'm talking to the production guys and I'm like, "Hey, there's really no way of me knowing if I'm doing good, bad, ugly, whatever." And they're like, "You're doing fine." And I was like, "Well, how do I know that?" And I said, "Has anybody talked to you?" And I said, "No." And they're like, "How often are you on?" And I was like, "Well, I'm on every week." And they're like, "Yeah, you're doing fine." So, was this a tryout? Absolutely felt like it was a tryout. Will I be back to Atlanta? That's up to them. But yes, I love doing it. It is doing media, doing legal commentary on a national platform is tons and tons of fun. Do I want to be a media personality, full time? I don't know about that. I mean, being a lawyer is pretty cool, dude. Yeah. Being a lawyer is pretty darn cool. Case in point, I arrived here at the studio at Habana Port in the VIP lounge. I am a locker member. Yep. I arrived here maybe about noon 30. A couple hours before we started recording. I'm just sitting chilling on a Thursday in the lounge, smoking a cigar, working remotely because I can work remotely as a lawyer. That's my Thursday. Why would I ever want to give that up? It's.
And I love hearing that because that was our goal for the Lighthouse Lounge, this new concept of ours, which is a members only private space. We were trying to cater to the business professionals, offer a space where you could conduct business, all in an environment where you could smoke too.
So I've never been to Japan. I've never been to one of these countries where this is a thing. Right, we've talked about this before, where the private lounge is where you could go to do business, high-speed internet.
Oh, like in Hong Kong.
Yeah, Hong Kong. Yeah. But I imagine big cities like a Chicago, maybe, where you can actually go and do business at the cigar lounge. And by do business, I mean either meet with a customer, meet with a client, or just remotely do business where you're on the laptop or whatever. This place, Habana Port, and I'm not just saying this because I'm here. I got high-speed internet. The other day. For the viewers, the other day I looked at you and said, "Hey, I need to print something out. Can you do that?" And you're like, "Of course, dude. That's small potatoes VIP lounge, right? Comfortable environment, good guys and gals that are members of the lounge with lockers. I get to do all of that, and so part of me loves the idea of being a national TV personality, but part of me also would be hard pressed to give up the life that I live now. Now, like many people in this world, I have a price. So if that price is met, Louis.
You're a mercenary just like me.
Yeah, so, who am I? Who am I to? But it's really, really, for me, it's a fun ride. Yeah. So let's take a step back. So I got into media a long time ago. There was a radio station locally, Guarantee Broadcasting Talk 107.3, and I was asked to fill in for a lawyer on a segment one week for two guys that were doing a radio show. So I filled in, and I showed up on time, and much of this business is showing up on time, not saying something that's going to get you an FCC fine. Although with podcasting, and I've done an episode on the laws surrounding podcasting. You got
this
a little
on
bit more,
your legally filtered.
This
podcast?
Is legally unfiltered radio show and podcast I used to do. We did an episode on what are the rules and regulations of podcasting, and it's really it's
the Wild West.
It's the Wild West.
Yeah.
With the exception of you have to be mindful of if you're trying to end up on like a YouTube or a Facebook, if you use music or if you do certain things that violate their policies, you're not going to get an FCC fine because FCC doesn't regulate this yet, knock on wood.
Yeah, I was wondering about that.
At some point somebody's going to regulate it. But now it's the Wild West. So it's a free for all. So I started in radio though. And if you show up on time and you follow all the rules on radio, they have you back. Kind of like Court TV. Just keep coming back, keep coming back. Eventually, that one segment ended up being a weekly recurring thing. That show that they did got canceled. New guy, Brian Haldane, took over the show. He said, hey, are you still interested in doing a weekly segment? We call it Legally Served. It's on Wednesday mornings at 6:25 Central in the morning, 6 a.m. It's called Legally Served, and I'm on every week. Now, if there's an exceptionally interesting news topic, they'll have me on a second time on a Friday. So that's every single week. And then on top of all that, radio figured out at some point the package, the media package, is much more valuable if you live stream it on video as well. Kind of like, hey, we're talking, this is a podcast, I can listen to this just audio. But they figured out, hey, if we stream this, this becomes like TV. So what ended up happening was they started recording and they started live streaming on Facebook Live and on other platforms, YouTube Live. Well, that led to them offering me my own show, which is called the Go Rouge Show, which we record on Friday afternoons. It's just a Celebrate Baton Rouge show. Kind of like...
So it's like a cultural
celebrating the finer things in life. Kind of like Habana Port.
Yeah.
Kind of like cigar smoking. So that became a thing. And so as that picked up, that started recording. Well, that connected to some of our local news stations. And when we had certain things happen in the community, I was asked to come on and do commentary on that. And I showed up on time, didn't say anything stupid, was minded my P's and Q's. Over time, that became a thing locally. I never thought it was going to become a thing nationally. Fast forward to about 2 years ago, actually pre-pandemic, someone asked me, hey, have you ever thought about doing like national? I'm like, there's no way like Court TV is going to find somebody in Baton Rouge, Louisiana and say, hey, we want you on every week. But they sent some of my tapes in, my digital tapes, and I supplemented that with additional tapes and videos that I thought were relevant and good content. And they gave me a tryout. They didn't call it a tryout. They were like, hey, we're going to put you on this day. These are the rules. These are the regulations. So I get on, I do it, and I think, okay, well, I've checked that box now. I've done Court TV. I'll never do it again. No big deal. That was about 1.5 to 2 years ago. And now I'm on every week. And what's really cool is the more they have booking agents. Like I don't have a booking agent, but they have booking agents for the individual shows on Court TV. So if Bob the Builder show needs a legal commentator, Bob the Builder is a fictitious, but you get it. His agent has to line up certain guests. Well, once you're on, if they like you, they're going to have you on again. 4th of July is coming up. So there are a lot of people out. So another booking agent talked to my booking agent and was like, hey, are you interested in coming in during the 4th of July week? Well, I'm on Skype. Like, even if I'm celebrating 4th of July, is it really cumbersome for me to get on a computer for an hour, do legal commentary, and then go back to my daily life? No problem.
Right.
When you travel, I've done Court TV while I was in Orlando on vacation. I've done Court TV while I was in Austin on vacation. You can do it from anywhere as long as you have a stable internet, as long as you have connectivity, and you follow their P's and Q's. And so, yeah. So
did the pandemic accelerate that method of remotely being able to broadcast, or was it on the way there?
So my impression is, because I didn't start until we were almost on the other end of the pandemic, my impression is that when the courts closed, Court TV kind of slowed down a lot. Right, because there was nothing to cover. Nobody was having trials. Nobody was doing anything. And so once we started coming back, remember, we were coming back to a world where court was on Zoom. Court was done remotely. And so we started seeing more videography in courtrooms, right? Camera systems are set up in courtrooms. Well, state of Louisiana, for those who don't know, we don't have cameras in courtrooms for broadcasting, but the other states do. And so what we've noticed is the pandemic stalled us and then accelerated us on the back end of the pandemic, because now people are more inclined to be more open to broadcasters being inside. And, it's not just Court TV. It could be CNN, it could be Fox, it could be anybody covering a high profile trial. Now, what I deem to be interesting as a trial and what you deem to be interesting may be totally different things.
Yeah. Like, what are some of the favorite cases that you've covered?
So sadly, if it's blood and guts and it's kids, it's going to be covered on Court TV. I did a couple of months of commentary on Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. You know who Johnny Depp is, right? So Court TV goes, hey, do you want to do some commentary on Johnny Depp? And I was like, well, guys, I'm a criminal defense attorney. I'm a fantastic criminal defense attorney, but I'm a criminal defense attorney. They're like, oh, you'll be fine. So I did commentary on Amber Heard and Johnny Depp. I didn't know anything about that. So that's something that anything high profile, they're going to follow. Yeah. Anything that there's documentary connectivity to. And by the way, we're living in a true crime world now.
Right. I was going to ask you about that. This fascination with like true crime, these podcasts, especially like people featuring some of these cold cases or high profile cases. It's a new world, right?
So
in terms of media and covering the legal issues.
So what drives the story? Does the case drive the story, or does the independent podcaster hobbyist, who's a true crime hobbyist, doing independent investigation on a cold case that starts discovering things? And by the way, everybody's a Sherlock Holmes now. Yeah. Everybo's a sleuth. And you've got people around the country.
Especially with their access, the cell phone, the smartphone.
You've got, on Court TV, there's Court TV UK. The number one audience online for people that do commentary feedback for, like when I post something, UK, Africa, people watching the same stories remotely, getting really into our true crime, from verdict, from crime to verdict, they follow it, right? Wow. And so, it's interesting. The podcasting is starting to get us more interested, which is shaping the prosecutions because we're now being more vigilant about what's happening. If you live in a vacuum and you only had one cigar and you didn't know about any other cigars and you lived in that vacuum, you may not know how good a Drew Estate is, right? You may not know how good a Steve Saka, a little creme brulee action is. Well, what's happening now is these prosecuting agencies are having to raise their game because they're being watched on a natural platform. And remember, Lou, a lot of these prosecutors are elected officials, and so our access to the courtroom is now
just wide open now.
It's wide open. It's an amazing thing. It's great. It's scary because it affects our ability to get fair trials sometimes because people know about things that they maybe won't know about as a juror because it may not be admissible, but they know about it, And then think about where you get your news from now. Do you get your news from watching a newscast or do you get your news from your cell phone? Yeah,
for me, it's now smartphone. I hardly look at these live broadcasts. Everything's whatever Google's pushing, So, yeah, it's an interesting world with like media and smartphones, podcasts, especially in the legal realm.
Well, I like it. I like it because, one, my ego likes it, right? I'm being what they call an ash hole right now. I've just ashed myself like a rookie.
You're only a real cigar smoker if you've like burnt a few shirts or get ash on yourself.
It's funny you say that because people see me occasionally take a picture for social media from here. And they're like, man, you're dressed like a bum right now. And I'm like, yeah, I'm dressed like a bum. I don't want to burn a hole through my nice suit. And I will. You're dressed beautifully right now. But
I was trying to, mirror our guests because I know you're always in good fashion, especially when you go to courts. So I'm like, yeah, I'm going to dress to what my guest is like. There was one episode I was in a Hawaiian shirt. Like I just try to, reflect our guest.
I dressed down today. So that was on me. But my point is I'll say that what's really interesting to me is the ability to virtually get into a courtroom is so much different than where it used to be. When I started practicing law in like 2006, if you weren't in the courtroom, you were relying on somebody else, right? And I've been in the courtroom next to a news reporter today on a case that's not mine, and they're reporting, and I'm watching in real time what they're reporting, and I'm like, Bob, that's not what happened. You're reporting something, and that's not what happened at all. But that's their interpretation of what happened. Well, now we have a camera in certain states. We have a camera in the courtroom to where you don't have to rely on Susie reporter or Steve reporter or anybody else. You watch it on your own and you formulate your own opinions.
Yeah. It is more transparency now. Huh?
It has created more transparency. It has created junior prosecutors, junior criminal defense attorneys across the world, which is fine. Yeah. But the benefit to me as someone who does jury trial work, I want to know what people think. I live in a vacuum. I'm a criminal defense attorney. I'm a mercenary, but I'm a criminal defense attorney. I live in a vacuum. I think I see something. I think one thing. I think, well, jury's going to do X, Y, and Z with this. Well, a layperson watching may have a totally different opinion than me, and maybe I need to listen to that opinion because that is how the juror might think or jury might think. And then, by the way, because of social media, I can tell what people are thinking because of comments. So I don't know if you've ever seen comments sections before of things. I mean,
yeah, it can get brutal. Yeah. The internet shows no mercy. Yeah, it's brutal.
Anonymity, baby. Anonymity.
Well, going back to why is Louisiana? Why do they prohibit access of cameras in courts?
There's really no good reason. I think they would argue that it's a distraction, that it creates a security risk. It doesn't. There's really, and in fact, in a world where we have Zoom court, there's no reason why not to have it in there.
And it should be public, right?
Yeah, federal courts have always not allowed cameras, and we've litigated that as a society, and the courts have said, no, you're not entitled to be in there. But take, for example, and I'm not getting into the Trump prosecution, the President Trump prosecution, but take, for example, a federal prosecution of a former president, where now we have the capability of having Zoom. Why not let the people watch remotely on Zoom or on a camera what's going on? I'm not going to go to New York. I'm not going to go to Washington, D.C. to go to a trial. But I want to know what's happening when something major is happening that's going to affect society, that's going to affect the country, that's going to affect the world. I want to see that. And the only way I can get in there is if we broadcast it. Going back to Louisiana. Do I think in our lifetime Louisiana might allow it? Maybe. I don't know.
Yeah.
But
does that have something to do with the Napoleonic Code and maybe kind of educate our listeners who are outside of Louisiana? What's the weird thing with Louisiana and its legal system?
So Louisiana's backwards, right? We use a code system. A lot of states use codes, right? We most of us use the same tax code for state taxes. There's a code for criminal procedure that most states have. Louisiana, for their civil law, uses a derivative of the Napoleonic Code, the old school way of doing law in European countries, this codified system of law, right? Basically, instead of using statutes, which we have statutes, we have a code. And a code is just a book filled with different code articles, and each code article is a different piece of law, right? We're really no different, though. We're no different in the sense that courts have to interpret what the code articles do, which is what every other place does, right? It's not because of that. It is just a state-by-state decision. The legislature at any point could say, you know what, I want more transparency. I want broadcasting in courtrooms. That's all that would have to happen, is if the legislature said we're going to allow it, it would be allowed. There's no good reason for it, right? There's really no good reason for not allowing it right now. There used to be an argument about distraction, how it's going to be distracting to the jury. It's going to be overwhelming to the court system. That's not. I mean, look.
Well, in that current system, who does it benefit? Does it benefit the prosecutor or the defense? I mean, or is it just not even relevant?
Well, so the question is you, if you're accused of a crime, are entitled to a public trial by a jury of your peers. Well, the jury of your peers part's easy, right? We pick a jury. But what's a public trial now? What does a public trial now look like versus how it looked like, 100 years ago? If I want the community, if I'm President Trump and I want the community to see what's going on, if I believe I'm being witch hunted because I want the community to see what's happening, I want there to be transparency, I want them to see what I'm experiencing, well then in that instance it benefits the defendant, right? But more to the point, constitutionally it benefits all of us to see the way the sausage is made, to see the way our criminal justice system works in each and every state. The downside is because Louisiana doesn't allow court cameras, is there's not a lot of court TV cases in Louisiana, right? I may be the legal commentator in Louisiana, but there's not a lot of court cases, right? And by the way, for the record, I'm not the first Louisiana court guest analyst for court TV. I'm just probably the most popular right now.
Yeah,
I'm the prevalent one right now. But I think in our lifetime we're going to see it because the technology is there. Dude, we're doing a video podcast right now. These cameras are unintrusive, right? You forget they're there. There's nobody behind the cameras. Our buddy Nick is over manning the cameras, so to speak, and everything's a single cord. It's not distracting anymore, right? This idea that you have to have a camera the size of a jam box. For those who remember, a jam box is a music device that we used to play music on that had cassettes. Cassettes were a way that we used to, that those days are over. If you look at video cards now, or candidly, a lot of these devices live stream. So you really just need a stable internet connection. And look, even if you're selling one camera to all the media conglomerates in terms of one feed, you're still satisfying the urge, the desire for people, especially now when we have a true crime passion.
Yeah. The murder porn is very intriguing for a lot of consumers now.
It is. If it bleeds, it leads.
Yeah.
Right? That's
hook. What Nick tells us all the time.
Yeah.
Is what they're taught in journalism. Mm-hmm. Which, I don't know.
But those are the cases you're not interested in a neighborhood criminal dispute. You're interested in, okay, this serial killer's being prosecuted in this state for doing some heinous serial killer stuff. Mm-hmm. I want to watch that guy get prosecuted.
Yeah.
There is a part of me as a citizen that wants to make sure that the constitutional rights afforded to any citizen are given to each and every citizen, because when they come for me one day, I want to make sure I can rely on that.
Yeah.
And if we allow a certain amount of erosion of constitutional rights on this person or that person, how do I ensure that I'm going to get them? So there is something to be said about an accountable public trial that the media, the national country can watch. Mm-hmm. The fact of the matter is, though, is that even if you allowed cameras in Louisiana courts, not everybody's going to be watching. Some of the cases just aren't tantalizing. They're not interesting. They're not something that you and I would watch. There will be cases when you have an athlete that's being prosecuted. I want to watch that. If it's we've had former football players, we've had current football players prosecuted for doing crimes. I want to watch that.
Former politicians.
We've had politicians.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a Louisiana trend, right? I mean,
is,
so.
Mm-hmm. I remember someone saying, Louisiana politics is just a spectator sport here in this state.
Now, look, all that being said, what I have observed is the amount of interest that the public has in these trials, whether you're watching Twitter. I don't get the metadata from Court TV. I can't tell you what my viewership is when I'm on. They know, I don't know. And by the way, Court TV is not just a national network channel anymore. It's also live streaming. I'm sitting in the lounge of Habana Port Cigar Merchant in Baton Rouge, in the VIP lounge. I can go to your smart TV that's hooked up to a high-speed internet connection, and I can watch Court TV live stream. I can watch it on my phone, live stream, right now if I wanted to. CourtTV.com. I just click on Watch Live, and all of a sudden, in my hand, I have live network coverage of a case. And in fact, they let me select which court case. If they're covering multiple court cases, I can select, okay, I want to watch the Thompson trial, or I want to watch the Robinson trial. I can do all that remotely now. So it's not just, and you know this already, it's not just, if I don't have this cable network or I don't have this package, it's not like ESPN where I have to have the ESPN pack. Well, shoot, even ESPN doesn't work anymore because you can just stream ESPN if that's what you want.
Mm-hmm. A la carte, yeah.
Dude, there are people that true crime a la carte. I wonder sometimes, when are these people working? Because it's like they're on 24/7. They have to watch it from victim to verdict. They have to watch it. They have to be watching. They need to know what's happening. It's daunting though, because our capacity for media knowledge is on this level to where, like, if I'm going to do, so Fridays with Franz is my segment on Court TV every Friday, 4 p.m. Central, 5 p.m. Eastern. If I don't spend a little bit of time watching and catching up about what's been going on, I'm well behind the curve on that. So
yeah, you can't speak to whatever case.
Right. I can comment. I can comment on live court that I'm watching, but and these people are watching in real time. And I'm telling you, the amount of Twitter activity is daunting to me. Like I think sometimes, why are you so interested in this?
Yeah, do you have a stake in this?
I'm interested. It's like a cigar.
Right.
Like, I love cigars. I'm interested in cigars. I can talk cigars with you all afternoon, but the next person may not. And their stake in it is, one, it's live human drama. It's why we watch the show Survivor, right? We shouldn't be interested in Survivor. That's unrealistic, right? I mean, it's a island survivor show that's supposed to be real TV, but it's really not. I mean, it's competition based. But we watch it. We love it. Big Brother on another channel. I think that's what it is, though. We are not. It's not an inappropriate voyeurism. It's just we want to watch the human drama that is life, and it's more entertaining than a movie because it's real, and we believe it's real, and we know that it's real because it's happening in a court of law. Yeah. So it's interesting stuff.
Yeah. Well, and you talked about, maybe kind of touched on motivations of why we have undertaken this initiative. Part of it for us, besides just branding our shop, is to impart the knowledge that we've built over the years. Because I'm seeing a lot of just people that aren't really in the business, but they're projecting themselves as being an authority. And I'm hearing some of this stuff that they're, discussing. It's like, man, you have wrong information.
Well, and if nobody corrects you or if nobody informs you, look.
And the public doesn't know like what's right. They don't have the benchmark.
I feel silly saying this, but I think you'll identify. As a cigar shop owner, Lou, how many times do people walk in who are totally clueless about cigars, who are just trying to buy a cigar for a loved one, for a friend, for a celebration, for a special occasion, and they're like, I don't know anything about cigars. And they'll throw out a name because they'll think, okay, well, everybody knows what an Arturo Fuente is. Or they'll throw out a name of something like a Swisher Sweet. Mm-hmm. And you're like, okay, well, you could buy a Swisher Sweet from a convenience store, but let me get a little bit more information. And I think to some degree, there is a mystique surrounding cigars if you've never been in that industry, if you've never bought a cigar, if you've never smoked a cigar. It's like the wine industry, right?
Just the experience of entering, this.
Well, and how many different cigars do you have in your shop? It can be overwhelming. To be fair, it can be overwhelming.
Absolutely.
So you've got people who are putting themselves out to be authorities on something. You have the ability now for you to make a podcast, to have interesting content, to have information about cigars. Like if you've never smoked a Liga Number 9, I feel bad for you if you've never smoked a Liga Number 9, but if you've never smoked a Liga Number 9, now you can have a segment or a blurb or 30 seconds on, hey, tell me about a Liga Number 9. Tell me about a Drew Estate. What is a Drew Estate? And look, I don't fault someone who's not into cigars for not knowing something. I don't know anything about pipe fitting. I'm not into pipe fitting. But it's great to have an area of expertise now. And now we Google. Want to change the thermostat on your AC in your house? You watch a YouTube video, and having these kind of podcasts, having somebody who truly is an authority, and everybody that works here is an authority, right? The thing I love about Habana Port, if I may talk about you guys.
Go ahead.
The thing I love about you is I may come in and say to one of the employees, hey, I want to go smoke this cigar. And someone will say, yeah, I don't think you're going to like that. And I'm like, because they know what I smoke, they know what I like and what I don't like, and they pay attention. And you, in fact, even keep data on, okay, well, these are the cigars that you've smoked, Franz, which is wonderful. I think that's super cool. I don't think that's creepy in the least, right? It's smart business. You can say, I know what you smoke and what you don't smoke, and that is not going to be something that you smoke. Well, why would you want me to spend money on something and have a bad experience if you know I'm not going to like it in advance? You're helping yourself, you're helping me, you're helping the consumer. And so to me, having that level of expertise of, okay, well, this is how you light a cigar. This is how you cut a cigar. How many times have people asked you, well, if you've never smoked a cigar before, how do you light a cigar? It seems intuitive. I've smoked so many cigars now that I would think, well, it's not rocket science.
It's like, how do you eat? How do you treat your food?
Right.
Like, it's just, we take it for granted. And so we know that, especially when a client comes in who's just a first timer or a beginner, we'll even answer the questions that they should be asking, but they don't know, right? There's no benchmark. So, and we don't have a problem with that. We love talking to new people, educating them correctly. Don't put your cigars in the freezer.
Please don't.
Even though, like, you've probably heard that from Uncle Bob. Like, that's probably the worst place to put.
So I am a known cigar smoker. So a lot of times when people are buying cigars, either for themselves and they're not smokers, or for a loved one and they're not smokers, they'll ask me, hey, what is a good cigar to get my husband? Or what's a good cigar to get my grandson who's graduating from law school? And I'll say, well, these are what I smoke. But really, in a store like Habana Port, in a shop like Habana Port, you go in and you tell the person that's working behind the counter, this is what I'm here to do. And they're going to ask questions and you're going to answer the questions. And then all of a sudden, the thousands of cigars you have become less daunting because we're narrowing down, this is really your sweet spot. Classic point.
That's right.
I sponsored a local golf tournament. I was the cigar sponsor along with the Habana Port, a local golf tournament. And I was talking to one of your managers about, like, well, what's a good cigar to have for people, for a mix of people? Some smoke, some don't smoke. I don't want to buy a whole bunch. I mean, I love Ligas, but
it's not for everyone. Yeah.
Well, not just that. It's like someone who doesn't like steak is not going to appreciate a beef Wagyu. It's not, a Wagyu steak is going to be wasted on them, right? Mm-hmm. So in talking to that manager, I was able to figure out, okay, well, this is our sweet spot, right? This is the type of cigars. What's interesting is we got milds, mediums, and Maduro, heavier cigars. And while we were out there, when golfers would come up to our table and say, okay, well, what do you guys have? And we have mild, medium, and a little heavier. people were making their selection based on that one descriptor.
Mm-hmm.
And it got to the point where we ran out of mild. And then it was, well, medium or darker. Well, I don't really smoke a lot of cigars. I'll go medium. And then we ran out of the mediums. And so just on a one descriptor, like, is it a heavy cigar? Is it a lighter cigar? And I'm sitting there telling everybody, look, these 3 cigars, they're all good, stable, lighted up. If you like it, keep smoking it. If you don't like it, it's not the most expensive cigar in the world. So if you need to put it out, put it out. But they were using the descriptor of the manager.
And that one characteristic is probably the most important, especially for people who don't smoke a lot. A lot of cigar aficionados are surprised to learn that mild cigars still are king when it comes to the amount of cigars consumed. Well, even though if you read the magazines, they're always promoting the full-bodied, rich cigars. But if you look at sales, mild is still the number one consumed in terms of strength.
I will confess, when I was prepping for today, I was thinking, man, smoking a number 9 would be great. Drew Estate, Liga Privada number 9. If you've ever seen me smoke a T52, another Liga cigar, another Drew Estate cigar, you've heard me say it before, man, if I smoke one of those, I'll get nauseated and I'll get a little sick. Not because I'm not a regular cigar smoker. It's just a heavier cigar for me. I don't often finish it. I love that.
And it could be something about that blend. There's a component, some tobacco that just gives you that reaction, even though a lot of people would say, man, the number 9s are actually stronger.
Right.
But it's really up to the individual.
It could be psychosomatic, which sometimes plays into it. It could be just a taste preference. It could just be that I had one cigar that was, but for me, I'm going to buy a number 9. I'm not going to buy a T52. Now, that all being said, one of the things I love telling people, new cigar smokers, is I'll tell them, look, if you start feeling a certain way, if you don't feel good, just put it down. Eat some chocolate.
Yeah.
And they're like, wait, chocolate? I learned that from, by the way, so you guys all know, I learned that from Lou. Eat some chocolate. There's something about the chocolate and the tobacco and the way it mixes together. You'd be better situated to say that. But I'll also tell people, if you don't like something, if you're sitting there eating a piece of fish and you're like, I just don't like this fish. Are you going to eat the entire fish? Or are you going to put it down and maybe move on to the next fish? Cigars are no different, right? No two cigars. They're both cigars. No two cigars are absolutely the same cigar. Even we've experienced, you smoke one cigar one year, you smoke the same cigar from a different year, and it may be different.
Yeah.
Different blend, different wrap, whatever. And so that's part of the fun of cigars is there's always a subtle distinction. Now,
every session is a unique session, even if you're smoking the same cigar, right? We don't know what the pH is in your mouth, your mood, whether you have a full or empty stomach. You know all these different traits.
So, classic example. I ate like a king in Atlanta. When I was in Atlanta, I was eating good food all the time. Going in the studio, eating good food. The way I smoked a cigar while I was in Atlanta was one way. Well, I'm back on dietary restriction now that I'm here, and I've been fasting and eating less food. I had a smoothie before I came over here. This cigar is going to taste different to me because I've had less food and a smoothie than it would if I would have had a steak and potato. Mm-hmm. And you're right. Each session is its own unique session, and that is part of the allure. Now, look, sometimes I like the social component of a cigar. I like sitting in a cigar lounge, chatting with guys about, and by the way, I don't know if you've talked about this on the show yet. Cigar lounges are kind of like the Age of Enlightenment coffee shop.
Yeah.
You can talk about whatever you want to talk about, and people are not fighting about politics, religion, or whatever. They can talk about stuff. And I've had conversations with people who are diametrically different than me, and we just talk. We're smoking cigars and talking. There are people that hate crime, right? And can't imagine doing what I do for a living as a criminal defense attorney. And we'll talk about that. And they're listening to, well, this is how I do it. They'll ask, how do you represent guilty people? And I'm like, well, how do you breathe? I don't think about it. I'm not sitting there thinking about, oh my God, this person's a monster. I tell people, in fact, most of the time, the harder thing is representing someone I think is innocent because I don't want to mess that up. I don't want that person to be convicted. I don't want that person to be penalized for something I didn't believe that they did. So this idea that cigar lounges are now, and cigars are this facility for that Age of Enlightenment. I think it was the Age of Enlightenment. Coffee shops where people would just come together and have intellectual conversations, philosophical conversations. Man, before I came on the show today, somebody was playing a Zelda game, and I was sitting there mindlessly watching the Zelda game in one of the lounge rooms in your VIP area, and we're chatting about Zelda.
Yeah.
Like, Zelda is not essential to me paying my mortgage this month. But that is just a classic example of one of the things we might talk about, you know? So,
no, we've touched on that topic, but in that cigars are such a social glue that I think our country is lacking, right? I mean, I guess if you think about the old time barbershop, right, where different people get to, from all walks of life get together and they have this common like bond, this one location where they can just kind of talk about life,
I'm drinking coffee right now. I'm drinking drip. One of the many benefits to being a member of this fine cigar club, this fine VIP lounge, is I get drip coffee, right? Somebody asked me the other day, well, you drink coffee while you smoke cigars? And I'm like, yeah, it's really good to have a good coffee and a cigar,
one of my favorite pairings.
especially in the morning, right? Now, is that to say you can't have a glass of port with a cigar, or you can't have a scotch, or heaven forbid, you just want a beer? Yeah. Maybe not a zero beer. Maybe not, depending on the can. Point is, though, is well, that's really there are combinations that will be good. But you need to figure out for you, I've had Sprite Zero. I'm smoking a cigar. If I'm sitting out in 90+ degree weather, I don't want to smoke a cigar with a hot cup of coffee, right? That's up to you to find out, right? There's people in your lounge that love red wine and will smoke cigars and drink red wine, and that's their thing, right? And so,
some people that would frown on that, especially like a lot of wine purists I've learned, they feel like you should not be pairing anything with that wine, which I get. But I also tell people, if that's your thing, go for it. Don't let anyone else tell you what you should pair.
One of the things I love about smoking cigars is every once in a blue moon, I'll look at you guys and say, I'm in the mood for a flavored cigar. I want a tobacco or something that's going to have a little, like a little sweetness to it. I used to be really, God's honest truth, I used to be really insecure as a cigar smoker about, hey, what am I going to smoke an acid or something sweet, like something that's just ridiculously not normal,
infused or
right. Well, now I'm like, well, maybe I'm just in the mood for a tobacco and I want something sweet. And you know what? I haven't smoked as many cigars as you have, but I've smoked enough cigars in my day to where if I want to watch professional wrestling on TV or if I want to watch CNN, I don't really care what people think, Exactly. Now, if I go into a Circle K and get a Black and Mild and you see me smoking a Black and Mild, there may be some raised eyebrows. But point is I like the diversity. I like the fact that you could smoke one of each and every cigar that you have in this shop, and it would take you how long? Think about that. Years.
Yeah.
And then by the time you get to the last cigar and you circled back, you got a new year and a new blend, and everybody's coming out with different things. And classic example. I use a phrase as the legal lawyer. I use a phrase. I've never met a Tatawahi cigar that I didn't like, because every single Tatawahi in their pantheon of cigars, while they're distinct, while they're different, I like them. They're just good cigars. Now, some of them don't blow my skirt up, but they're just solid. I've never met one that I was like, ugh. Arturo Fuente. Unless the Arturo Fuente cigar has been mishandled in a humidor, in your uncle's humidor that hasn't been tempered in a decade, and so like you pull it out and it's like all like unraveling. Yeah. Arturo Fuente is a safe bet, right? Yeah. There's cigars that are a safe bet, but I love the nuances. I like the fact that I may smoke one cigar and there's a hint of pepper. And I'm looking at you like, is this like spicy? And you're like, yeah, there's a spicy taste to it. And I'm like, well, how is there a spicy taste to this? I mean, did they add cayenne? I mean, they're not adding fentanyl to cigars right now. Knock on wood. Not yet.
No.
Hopefully never.
No, exactly. No, but that's, we try to convey that point to especially beginners, that there's so much diversity, so many different strains of tobacco. I mean, and that's what accounts for like the multitude of flavors and profiles.
Different climates. What's around the cigars? What's cultivating near the cigar tobacco? Yeah. Did they put something in the blend that we don't know about that's organic and natural, but yet is an additive that we don't, and we don't know. And unless we get the recipe from Drew Estate, we don't know what's going. I mean, we have an idea. I've talked to Steve Sock. I think I know what's in here, but I mean, it's so there are nuances, right? The other thing is, for those who are like overwhelmed by the massive quantities of cigars, that's why you talk to somebody that knows what they're doing, right? That's why you talk to someone like you guys and say, hey, I like this. I don't like this. I know myself well enough to know. If you're a guy that drinks a cup of coffee, black, you may like one type of cigar. If you're a person that drinks a cup of coffee and you get nauseated because it's too strong, too bold, well, maybe you need to be smoking another type of cigar. And neither are wrong.
Right. We just need to figure out what is the right cigar or right product for you. And going back to like the authority, I want to get into your background. I have your contact in case, God forbid, I get in trouble. But
when they come for Lewis, I'll get the call.
Yeah. But, I want to, pair up with people who are authorities in their respective fields.
Okay.
Give me a little background of like, you've been rooted in this community. So do you come from a family of lawyers? Like what was
So my grandparents were lawyers, but they were banker and real estate lawyers. They were not criminal justice attorneys. So how did I get into criminal law? It's actually a very funny story. So I take my first set of exams in law school, and one of your first classes is a basic criminal law class. And I get my exam grade back for criminal law. It's the lowest grade I got that year. It's the lowest grade I've ever gotten in law school. Horrible grade. And I remember thinking at the time, criminal law is for chumps. I'm never going to practice criminal law. This is the last time. Besides the bar exam, I'm never going to have to touch criminal law again. Now I am 16 years later doing exclusively criminal law, right? So what happened was I got out of law school. The first job I got was with a judge who did a criminal docket. All he did all day long, 5 days a week, was criminal law. I fell in love with it. It's the same thing we were talking about before. It's human drama. It's, the highest stakes, you're a hunter. A highest stakes hunt is a human, right? Not that we're hunting humans, but I mean, a trial essentially is I'm trying as a prosecutor, I'm trying to take away your liberty, to convict you, to do something. And that's high stakes, man. I mean, you want to play for money. That's great. Go to the casino and play for money. Human liberty. It's high stakes.
Yeah.
So I fell in love with it. So the first job I had after that judge was I worked for a public defender's office for about 3 years where I represented poor people. Indigent individuals. And it was really an eye-opening experience because socially and economically, I had one worldview about how life was. And then you represent people who are indigent, truly, the poorest of the poor human beings who cannot afford representation, but who are constitutionally entitled to it.
Yeah.
That dispelled a lot of my misconceptions about life, socioeconomics. And so I did that for 3 years. At the end of the 3 years, I had done good enough to get hired as a felony prosecutor for the DA's office in Baton Rouge. So here I am now. I got a 10-star. I got a gold badge that I'm rocking, and I'm prosecuting the worst of the worst criminals. I did that for about a year. And then because I'm a mercenary, and I know you'd appreciate that, I did such a good job doing that a private attorney made me an offer I just couldn't refuse. And it was a quality of life change for me. So I did private practice, and I've been doing private practice since then. Worked for that attorney for about 5 years, and then I opened up my own lemonade stand, so to speak.
You made the leap, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Jumped off the cliff, so to speak, out of the nest.
Were you apprehensive at first?
Oh, dude, jumping out of the nest is scary. There are some people that are just inherently good at doing that, and they've got great business acumen. Remember, I know the law, but I was not trained to be a business person. There was you can know everything there is to know about cigars. Does that mean you should open up a cigar shop? And in fact, I would imagine you'd have pretty strong feelings that that's not loving cigars and opening up a cigar shop are two vastly different things, right? Mm-hmm. So I was apprehensive. I was scared. I was scared poopless. I didn't I'm this radio mindset.
Yeah.
I didn't think it was going to work. And I thought, man, I'm going to be a failure. Here you go from making a salary. You go from working 40 hours, 60 hours a week, making a salary, knowing the paycheck's going to clear to, okay, well, it's now all on me. Well, fortunately for me, I had some good mentors. And fortunately for me, I had done community activism and stuff. Stuff is a bad word, but I had been involved in the community such that when I got out there, I was well known. And I do an area of law that's kind of, there's a lot of criminal defense attorneys, but most law-abiding citizens don't like socialize with criminal defense attorneys. It's not like you're going to wake up and say, hey, it's Thursday. It's beautiful weather outside. It's a little warm. I'm going to hang out with a criminal defense attorney today. It just doesn't happen. But if you're connected to the network of your community, you may never need a criminal defense attorney, but if someone in your circle needs one, hey, that Franz guy, he's a good guy. He does criminal law. You need to call him up. Ironically, I've got a lot of referrals just hanging out at a cigar shop. People talking about, not promoting myself, just, hey, you do criminal law, don't you? Yeah, my cousin or my niece or I've got this traffic ticket. So it's about connectivity, right? Mm-hmm. So for 5 years, I've been doing that. Well, tack on that, the legal commentary, tack on the fact that I'm an adjunct professor at the LSU, Paul M. Maybear LSU Law Center. So somebody at some point thought, hey, even though you got the lowest grade in criminal law that you could have gotten. I'm now a teacher. I'm now a practicing trial attorney. I'm now someone who does legal commentary. I don't know if I'm an authority or not, but in terms of checking the boxes for what you would want as an authority on something, the other thing is there's a certain element of humility. If you're an authority on something, you have to know when to say, I don't know the answer to that. That's a good question.
Right.
If you ever hear me say, that's a really good question, I'm not certain the answer to that. I will mentally play out loud. It could be this, it could be this, A, B, and C, but it could be Y and Z and W. And so you have to have a certain level of humility of knowing, okay, this is something I don't know the answer to. Well, the other side of it is if you repetitively do something, if you are in a cigar world, if you're in a criminal defense justice system, and there's an element of craftsman, there's an element of artist, and if you're the two, right? Like the example I use all the time on this topic is the best chef in the world can make the most delicious dish, but that's not what's prized in a restaurant. What's prized is consistency. The craftsman that can make the dish over and over and over, and it's the same time, it's the same meal and dish you had on June 28th as it will be on November 1st and on January 1. The craftsman, which is what I think of myself as. I'm not an artist. I'm a craftsman. I do repetitive things, and the blessing of doing one area of law is I do one thing over and over and over and again, and I've experienced most issues. A lot of private attorneys haven't tried a murder case. Honestly, most people who commit murder or are accused of committing murder don't have the money to hire a private attorney. They're represented by public defenders. Well, what did I do the first 3 years of my practice of law? I was a public defender, so I've represented several cases where there were homicides. In addition to that, I've prosecuted homicide cases. So when I get asked to go to, and I get asked now to go talk to prosecuting entities, to do lectures and talks about that. I get asked to do talks to forensic scientists about certain issues. Part of it is my authority is based off known experience. This is a guy that really is he's not just a guy that smoked one cigar. He's been doing this for so many years that when he says something about a cigar, he at least has an idea or an inkling or a clue. So that is a long answer to a very short question of how did I get there? Well, part of it was just luck. Part of it was experience. Part of it was taking advantage of if a criminal laboratory who's trying to teach their lab techs and their analysts best practices in the criminal justice system asked me to go teach them for an hour, I'm going to do that. Well, why? Because I want to be the guy that teaches them how to do stuff. If the Louisiana AG's office has once had me over to teach jury selection, you're darn right I'm going to go teach them, because I want to be able to say, if I have a case against the AG, well, you don't have to believe me when I say I'm a really good criminal defense attorney. However, I did teach them how to do jury selection. And if I taught them how to do jury selection, there's a good chance that I would be good enough at jury selection to go head to head with them and to try a case against them. So there's opportunities that you have to take advantage of. There are a lot of people in my industry that would never go teach forensic scientists how to do stuff. Well, that's foolish, right? How do you become an authority if you're not putting yourself in those positions? Not to mention the fact that you're now networking with those people. The number one place I get referrals from is law enforcement. People
Really?
who know police officers who are like, hey, I'm in a lurch. What do I do? Call that Franz guy. He's a former prosecutor. He's a good guy. He does legal commentary. He's upstanding. The other factor is you got to treat this just like your industry. You got to treat your customers right. You got to treat your clients right. You got to charge them appropriately. Don't overcharge them. Don't promise them the sun, the moon, and the stars. Be grounded. Communication. The biggest in any industry. Communicate. If you say you're going to do something, communicate. If you say you're going to do something and something happens, life happens. Sometimes life gets lifey.
Right.
Communicate. Hey, I said I was going to have it done by this day, but it looks like I'm really going to have it done tomorrow. You got to communicate, right?
That's
Not
right.
communicating.
I'm glad you said that, because I feel validated. I guess one of my weaknesses is that, and I have staff members that make fun of me for it, but it's like, man, you over-explain that cigar too much, to that person. Like, well, I want that client to know what he's getting, is of value. Like that price is commensurate with the quality he's going to get. It's
short-term thinking versus long-term thinking. The short-term thinker is, I want to get this client, and all I care about is this one case, this one client, and that's all I care about. No, you need to be thinking, if I do a good job, if I communicate, if I share knowledge and information with this person,
what's in their best interest,
then it's the best marketing you never have to pay for. In fact, they're paying you. And so, and I don't think there is such a thing as over-explaining, unless the person comes in and says, "Hey, I got 5 minutes. I don't need to know. I don't need to know about the
vintage of this one,
the weather of that year of that brand. I don't need to know that." So it's a tricky thing. But I got to tell you, 5 years into being solo, 5 years of being by myself, do I still have the apprehension of at any moment this can all just go away, right? Like I try to raise a certain amount of money, earn a certain amount of money each month. I have a milestone, just like any business. I don't know when the phone's going to ring, when it's not going to ring. I have predictors, as in, okay, July's coming up. I can tell you what my trend has been in every single July that I've ever practiced law. But this July may be different. There may be something going on, right? I can tell you that in December, people traditionally, they don't stop committing crimes. They just don't want to deal with their crimes until after Christmas. They want to have Christmas, just like you and I.
Yeah.
So to some degree, you learn as you go. You have to pay attention to trends. That's why I like data collection. I like when you're like paying attention to, okay, what do I know about this prosecutor? What do I know about this judge? Can I make educated, predicted decisions based on what I know? Now, sometimes I'm wrong. Again, it goes back to humility. I have to tell the client, I tell you this is what I think it's going to happen. There's a 70% chance of rain. There's gray clouds. I think it's going to rain. The weather people have said it's going to rain. Does that mean it might not rain? Sure.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you want to have a rain jacket and umbrella just in case? Well, that's that. There's a humility basis of conceding. I'm not perfect. This is what my educated opinion is. And by the way, you're paying me for that. So if you don't want to listen to me, that's up to you.
Does that get frustrating when you have these clients? Like you're trying to tell them, look, this is the route we should take. And they just, for whatever reason, don't want to dismiss it. Like, how do you deal with that? Or if you can give me an example.
So as a baby lawyer, I would take it personally. Like how dare you act like you know more than me? In my old age, I don't. That is, they're paying for representation. They're paying for someone to give them an opinion. If they don't want to listen to me, that's fine. Now I have to document, because people have very short memories. People will say, well, you didn't tell me about X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, no, I did. And here's the email, or here's the letter I sent you.
CYA, huh?
Yeah, it is to a certain degree because now, and look, God bless them. If you're charged with a crime and you're in the thick of it, and especially if you've never been in the criminal justice system before, how would you know? It's like smoking a cigar you never smoked before.
Yeah.
If you've never smoked, how would you know?
Yeah.
So I don't take it personally. I may say to them, depending on how they're acting, I may say to them, you don't have to listen to me. I'm not going to jail. You don't have to. We can do what you're trying to do. Now, sometimes I'll say, please don't do what you're about to do. I'll be the person in the room that we're strategizing. I may be working on a team or with a team, or I may be working as a consultant, and someone says, Franz, what do you think? And I'll say, please don't do what you're about to do. Because what you're about to do is going to lead to this, that, and the other. And I may be wrong, but from a risk management standpoint, I would not do what you're about to do. I've gone on record as saying it. I'll put it in writing. And then, the chips will fall where they may at that point. So, and look, trials are like sporting events. I can tell you what I think is going to happen based on the strength of the evidence, the strength of the players, the pitching percentages, and all the numbers. And I can make educated calls based on the data that we all have. Any given Sunday, one team can win, another team won't. LSU, not at the heels of being national champions. Game 2, huge football score blowout. Like Florida scored 20-something points. The next day was inverted. LSU scores a whole bunch of runs, and Florida doesn't. Life trials are like that, which is part of the reason why we like watching these things, because it's better than watching an NFL football game.
Yeah.
Like, who wants to watch?
There's real stakes.
Yeah. I mean, it goes. I hate to say it, it's like the most noblest game to hunt, but I mean, who wants to watch an NFL game when you can, like, someone's on trial for their life? Like, what's more entertaining and interesting to you? And I hate to use that as an entertainment descriptor, but I mean, candidly,
it's compelling. Yeah.
It is compelling. You think of the ripple effect of everyone in a courtroom, the victims who believe that the individual who's standing trial committed the crime, committed the heinous crime, murder, rape, you name it, dealt drugs. The jury, who has no dog in the hunt except they're listening to evidence and weighing whether or not the prosecution has proved its case beyond a reasonable doubt. The prosecutor who believes in their case but may have that little question in their back of their mind of, I believe this person did it. I think this person did it. Ethically, I wouldn't be able to prosecute them if I didn't. But what if they didn't? And then me sitting at the defense table saying, hey, look, my responsibility is to make sure you have all these constitutional rights that are lived up to and that the state proves their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Candidly, I don't care whether or not you did it or not. It's not guilty or innocence. It's guilty, not guilty. Not guilty is a legal standard. Not guilty means they didn't prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. So there's a lot of factors that go in, but being an authority is tricky because the more you act like an authority, sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes you come across as pompous, arrogant, and all that. So I try to have this level of humility. Yeah. You know, when you're the Top Gun pilot, you're still trying to be not Maverick. You're trying to be somebody else, you know, so it's tough.
That is like a tight line to walk because that's something I try to be conscious about. Like, I don't want to project myself as being a know-it-all. And I'll be the first to admit when I don't know something about a cigar or the process. But I never minded people who are like the masters in their craft. And to some, it might seem like it's bragging, but I want to listen to like the authority, right? And I think they should be proud of that.
So when I first started doing legal commentary, you would hear me say, oh, that was a horrible prosecutor. I can't believe he did X, Y, and Z. And I sometimes still do that. Mm-hmm. Now you'll hear more, I would have gone a different direction if I were him or her. Mm-hmm. If I were the judge, I might have ruled differently. I can see why they ruled the way they did, but I might have ruled differently. I try to be a little bit more, I try to give a little bit more grace and mercy to the individuals who are in the arena doing what they're doing, right? What I love, going full circle, is Steve Saka.
Yeah.
I don't remember which cigar he was talking about, but if you remember, somebody asked him a question about a really good cigar, and he did something that I thought was remarkable. He said, objectively, that is a great cigar. I don't care for it, but objectively, I'm paraphrasing Steve Saka, so if Steve's watching this show, which he should be, I'm paraphrasing, right? But I don't even remember what cigar it was, but it was the acknowledgement of something can simultaneously be good, dare I say great, and I may not like it.
Yeah.
And that is the next level. To me, that's the next level authority, is conceding that I leave room for preference. I leave room for certain things that may be nuanced, that may change my commentary and my authority. The person that just said, by the way, I'm not a Vegas magician. If I were 100% accurate all the time in my commentary and my predictions, I would be in Las Vegas right now with a show with a couple of attractive like women on stage and pulling rabbits out of hats and all that. I don't do that. I was, in fact, when I was in Atlanta, I predicted an outcome of a jury trial that I was convinced was going to be an acquittal, a not guilty. I was wrong. I was wrong. And me and another commentator both predicted the same thing. So the anchor, who I know very well, was like, hey, you predicted this and you were wrong. And I looked at him and I said, I'm wrong. I'm often wrong.
Yeah.
I said, these are the reasons why I thought I was going to be right. But, these trials are organic things. Juries are unpredictable in their in our quest to predict things and to figure out things. So I'm willing to fall on the sword and admit when I'm wrong. Sports analysts.
Right. Or even these coaches, you got the train. So this part of the
this will be edited out later, right?
I don't know. We kind of want to keep it in because I think it's funny. Like we had a guest on previously that he had the train come through, and we just try to make a joke of it, like, "Oh, you win the prize." So I should probably give like a special cigar to guess when like the train comes by. But yeah, I'm glad we're not live for this. But no, going back to like I admire like the great coaches who lose a game or blew a call. And they're humble enough to be like, you know what, I got it wrong. I made the wrong call.
So we watch. It's legal commentary is a thing too, but sports commentary. There are guys that are into sports. All they do is watch ESPN commentary all day long.
Yeah.
You're not watching because these guys and gals that are doing commentary. It's 2023. There's gals too now. You're not watching because they're right. You're watching because sometimes they are wrong, and you're not rooting for these people to be wrong. And there may be commentators, college football. Game day. There's like 4 people sitting at a table. We all agree that the 4 coaches or players, former college players at the table on game day. College, what do they call it?
The game day. College game day. Yeah.
All 4 of them. No one, you may disagree with 2 of the 4, but you can objectively, Steve Saka, say, these guys at least have earned the ability to have an opinion. Now, we all get opinions, right? So I try to maintain a certain level of humility in my predictions. And I try not to, and sometimes there's a case I'm tracking right now that a jury has been deliberating for 4 days, which is unheard of. I'm predicting an acquittal. I may be wrong. It's a sensitive, hot, high-profile case out of Florida. It deals with the Parkland shooting and the cop that didn't run into the shooting, and he's being prosecuted for not running into the fray. And they've been deliberating for 4 days. Whatever's going on in that jury room, none of us know. Nobody knows what's going on in that jury room, but they're at least thinking and talking about it. Yeah. There may be a holdout. It's a 6-person jury. There's times I'll stick my neck out and say, I think this is going to be this. I think it's going to rain. There's other times where I'll say, and I do it on court TV all the time, I really don't know what's going to happen. These are things that could lead a jury to convict. These are things that could lead a jury to acquit. And by the way, this is why it's good that we have court TV, because we'll know either way.
Yeah. No, it's interesting stuff. Watching your progression in that space. So hopefully you can flourish.
Cognitive psychology is a beautiful thing. Why people make the decisions they make, beautiful thing. We know that the band on a cigar, the colorful band that goes on each and every cigar, it has nothing to do with the flavor of the cigar. It has nothing to do with the way the cigar is going to smoke. It has nothing to do with anything other than the visual acuity of the band on the cigar. And yet I know that some people will buy a cigar because of the coloration, because of the banding, all that stuff, on a piece of I guess paper or whatever material it's made out of that's on there.
Oh, but it's real consequential into what makes a consumer pick that cigar and buy it.
Objectively, we know though it doesn't affect the taste of the cigar, right? Mm-hmm. But objectively, we also know that consumers are affected by things in their decision making, such as color.
Yeah.
If you've ever watched billboards, personal injury billboards, there's a reason they're red or yellow in color. You're never going to drive past one now and not notice that it's red and yellow. Why? Because that pops. Red and yellow is pops. That's why the personal injury attorneys of the world, it's always red and yellow.
It's the reason why Coca-Cola uses red, Raising Cane's, the best brands incorporate that color. And oddly enough is why a lot of cigar bands are red, combination of gold. Not the ones we're smoking now, but a lot of them are when you go to a humidor.
I like the fact that the Liga Privada number 9, I feel like each every one is autographed.
Yeah.
Somebody wrote, I don't even know whose handwriting it is. Could that have been Steve Saka's handwriting?
It may have been because he was the one who created that.
Yeah. It's just handwriting. Mm-hmm. Somebody somewhere, a marketing person somewhere who makes more money than you and I probably make, figured that out, and that was going to be it. Yeah. And look, the experience is somehow shaped and not shaped by that one little factor. Now, that being said, Tatuaje bands, different color. It's the same Tatuaje, right? In terms of the manufacturer, but different colors. Mm-hmm. One's black, one's red. Drew Estate makes a cigar that I love. The
Underground?
No. The Esteli.
Herrera Esteli. Yeah,
Esteli. Mm-hmm. I'm going to be dead honest with you. It's a good cigar. I love it. I also like the band. For some reason, when I see that band, there's a part of me inside. I've noticed it.
It's something classic. Yeah.
It's something classic, and I can feel the dopamine when when I see it. I'm like, oh, that's going to be a good cigar smoke. But I know that objectively, it's the same thing in what I do. There are some things that I can look at. If someone hires me to do jury consulting, I'll say, hey, these are the things you need to be paying attention to. These are the things that I think are not going to matter, but you still need to be aware that these things over here matter in the sense of you need to be paying attention to them because somebody might care about it.
Yeah.
The color of your tie. Pink.
Man, that could be a factor, huh?
Pink pops, but they've done studies that show that after a certain amount of time, pink becomes annoying. So pink is good in small dosages. You don't want to be wearing a pink tie all trial long because it's going to become for some cognitive reason, it's a color that is good for a short time, and then you're like, ugh.
That reminds me of this anecdote. I'm sure you've heard about it. It involves a lawyer, and you probably heard this in cigar shops. There was a story about, I think it was a lawyer who incorporated the use of a cigar.
Yes.
During a time when you could smoke in courtrooms, which I wish you could do that. That'd be awesome.
So back in the day,
the story was. Do you know the story?
Yeah. So back in the day, you could smoke cigars in courtrooms, and they would use piano wires, the things that are used to make sound, and they would put one of those into the cigar so that the ash would not ash off. And so your ash would become inches, right? For those listening, there are competitions around the world of people to have ash competitions to see how long they can smoke without having the cigar ash, right?
Yeah.
Whether in the ashtray or all over you. So this lawyer would do it because it would become distracting, and he would smoke it during the other attorney's presentation. I don't know who the lawyer was, but that's like an old country.
Yeah. I don't know if it was an urban legend.
And you know what? True. And you know what? I can see it working.
And the point of that was to distract the jury to focus on that ash. Like, when is that ash going to fall?
It's a horrible thing, right?
Yeah.
But in the same breath,
strategy.
Right. Will I, while the opposing counsel is doing something, will I sometimes lean back in my chair or do something?
Whoa.
Yeah, but I don't know. So I try to not do that, but I'm human. And especially when you know that it affects the way people, like there's jurors that will look for the other side's reaction or your client's reaction when a damning piece of evidence comes in. They want to know, well, what is this person thinking? Did he show any emotion? Oh man, he looks emotionless over there.
Wow.
So one of the reasons, I don't know how much time we got, but one of the reasons clients don't constitutionally are not required to testify under our Constitution is they're in a lose-lose situation. If they show too much emotion, someone may say, oh, they're just faking. If they show too little, oh, they don't care. If they testify, someone would say, well, they're just testifying because they want to save their own hide. They're just getting up there. And then another person may say, well, if I'm innocent of something, there's no way I wouldn't testify. They're in a lose-lose. Someone is going to be displeased before they even say word one. So the Constitution, our founding fathers, for whatever reason, thought, hey, this is a reason why we don't require people to testify. They are constitutionally allowed to remain silent, and the state has the burden to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt.
That's the Fifth Amendment you're referring to? Yeah. Man, yeah, so I guess you could have an example. I never thought about it as being a lose-lose situation. Because what if a client is truly, let's just say he's truly innocent, right? Well, why wouldn't he get on the stand to, plead his case? But what if he messes up and then the bias of the jury comes into play? And then
So as the quarterback, I'm looking at the field. And if I believe that the state hasn't proved its case beyond a reasonable doubt and that there's doubt, and if there's doubt, there may be an acquittal. My client may be found not guilty. It's my ball to drop at that point. And more particularly, it's my client's ball to drop if they get up there and they mess up. Now, what a lot of people don't realize is constitutionally, the only person that gets to make the decision as to whether or not the client testifies or not is the client. I don't make that decision. I may make all the other decisions in a trial. The client, the individual, the accused is the only person that gets to constitutionally make that decision. And if they say, I'm testifying, Franz, even if I say don't do it, they do it. And I got to make the best of it. Yeah. Now, the flip side is if I know somebody is guilty and I know that they're about to perjure themselves, I cannot suborn perjury. I cannot elicit testimony that I know is going to be false. So then we have situations where I'm like, well, Judge, my client's going to testify in the narrative. I'm not going to ask him any questions. They're just going to testify. Well, that's a giant blinking light for those who are listening. That's a giant blinking light for, this guy's about to go off reservation.
Oh, wow. Wow. Huh.
It's a lot, man. It's a lot of factors.
And the human elements involved. And just I can see why. Like, I thought, man, what the prospect of court TV when I first heard about that, it's like, how is that going to gain any traction? Like, what kind of interest could a channel just devoted to that?
What I love is I used to feel the same way. And I find myself now, like when I'm not watching Zelda in the lounge, I'll watch it. Yeah. Because I want to see, what am I missing? What am I seeing and not seeing? Cognitive psychology. When I was a baby attorney working for the public defender's office, I did a lot of research on this because that's the same psychology that's used in marketing and PR is used for jury consulting. And I wanted to know, why is it that someone picks this item on the menu based on pricing versus another one? The classic example is you may not buy the most expensive wine. You may not buy the cheapest. The best-selling wine may be the one that's right in the middle.
Yeah.
The porridge is just right. Yeah. So I wanted to know that. And the more you deep dive into why human beings make decisions, you then have to deep dive into, well, why do we make decisions together as a group? Because a jury at the end of the day is a tribe of people, whether they like each other or not, they're making a decision as a group. What are group dynamics versus individual? There's so many different layers. And if I have enough data, I can make calculated decisions and predictions. If I don't have enough data, I'm just shooting arrows into the sky and hoping for the best, so.
Yeah. That's pretty compelling stuff, man. Well, look, we're going to wrap it up. Before we do, I have this final segment that I call the final puff.
Okay.
4 rapid fire questions. Are you up for it?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right. Number 1, Tabasco or Crystal?
Tabasco every day. It's local.
Nice.
I've been to Avery Island. It's beautiful.
Awesome. Number 2, your favorite vacation destination?
Ooh, that's a tough one. I like Santa Fe, New Mexico. I find it peaceful, spiritual. The weather's always good, and it is not a terrible flight to Albuquerque or to Santa Fe. So,
nice. I would have thought Spain because we've talked about that, and I know you went to Spain.
So the only reason I didn't pick Spain is I can go to Santa Fe more often than I can go to Spain. But I love me some Spain.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, number 3, the ideal person you would want to smoke a cigar with, alive or dead?
Ooh. So I'm in a religious phase of my life. So there are some religious like St. Augustine.
Okay.
I don't even know. He probably would never have smoked a cigar. Now, so that being said, I think in my era, I think I would have wanted to smoke a cigar with like a Martin Luther King or somebody that convected real change in the United States history, like an Abraham Lincoln. Wouldn't it be cool to just sit and chat with Abraham Lincoln over a cigar?
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, that would probably be. I would probably go, if I'm not going religious figure, I would probably go like an Abraham Lincoln or Martin Luther King.
Cool. All right, and final question: what's your desert island cigar? Only one cigar.
Oh,
yeah.
I think if I'm stuck on a desert island and I can have I'm assuming I can have
infinite, but it's only got to be one cigar.
Because of the climate, because of the circumstances, I'm going to go Tatawahi. It's going to be a Tatawahi, and it's probably going to be the Black Band.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because of consistency, because I'm just, it's not going to be too much, not going to be too little. Now, would I turn down a Liga, an endless supply of Ligas?
Yeah.
Absolutely not. Number 9's the way to go, but I think it would be Tatawahi in the Black Label. Yeah.
That was a cigar we smoked for episode 3. Just a little plug for previous episodes.
Absolutely.
That's cool.
Cool.
Well, I appreciate it, Franz. Anything else you want to impart before we sign off?
If you want to follow me on social media, Twitter, it's Borghardt Law, at Borghardt Law, Borghardt, Borghardt. I'm also on social media, and you can also check me out on the Go Rouge show. It's all over social media, and we spell go in that weird, funny Louisiana way of Geaux.
Yeah, Geaux.
Yes.
Cool.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate it, Franz.
Thank you guys for having me, man.
Thanks for coming out. Thanks for listening, everyone, and until the next cigar. Thank you for tuning in today. We hope you found today's conversation insightful and entertaining. If you enjoyed this episode and want to discover more episodes, check us out at thelifepuro.com or any other major streaming platform. If you're interested about the cigars we smoked, you can visit us at shop.habanaport.com. Until the next cigar, thank you.